Did you ever look someone in the eyes? Someone who lied to you, betrayed you, used you, and just smile, not out of forgiveness, not out of kindness, but because you knew. Because you understood something they didn't say, that their power over you was already gone. That you didn't need to shout, didn't need revenge, didn't need to burn anything down. Because you were already playing a smarter game. See, the smartest way to destroy someone who hurt you is without saying a word. No anger, no drama, just action, just results. And that terrifies people more than any confrontation ever could. When someone tries to break you, they're not just aiming for your reputation or your feelings. They're aiming for your control. They want you to react, to lash out, to fall apart. Because if they can provoke you, they still own a piece of you. But when you respond with silence, with strength, with the kind of poise that says, "You don't get to shake me," you take everything from them. You make them invisible. And in a world obsessed with being seen, being invisible is the greatest punishment of all. You don't punish people by lowering yourself to their level. You punish them by rising so high they can't even breathe in your atmosphere anymore. Every time you choose to stay focused, to keep building, to keep improving, without saying a word, you remind them that they lost access to something they couldn't handle, you. When people hurt you, your greatest revenge is not attention, it's evolution. You become sharper, colder, stronger, but not bitter. You don't harden in anger. You sharpen in silence. You don't chase justice. You become the justice. Because now you're building something they can never sabotage, again in your unshakable life. The smartest move you'll ever make is becoming someone they can't reach. And that doesn't mean disappearing. It means glowing so brightly, growing so powerfully, that your life becomes a mirror to every mistake they made. You don't throw words. You show outcomes. You don't argue. You succeed. You don't explain. You elevate. Until the same people who underestimated you are forced to watch you thrive in silence, choking on the distance they created. Make no mistaking, silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. The loudest person in the room isn't the most powerful. The most dangerous person is the one who smiles, walks away, and never comes back because they've already turned their pain into power. You see, real strength is when you don't need validation. You don't need closure. You don't need revenge. You are so in control of yourself that there's dies in the presence of your peace. They expect rage. They expect tears. Give them nothing. Let your silence be the storm they never saw coming. And remember, some people hurt you not because you're weak, but because they saw strength in you that threatened them. So don't break down for people who already feared your potential. Show them they were right to be afraid. Because now, you're unstoppable. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth to those who can't see it is the moment you step into a power they can never reach. They don't get to see your struggle, your healing, your comeback. That's yours. And when you walk past them silent, steady, unbothered, that's the final blow. Because silence isn't just the absence of words. It's the presence of power. Silence is not the absence of strength. It is strength. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. When someone wrongs you, they expect noise. They expect backlash, confrontation, maybe even chaos. But when you give them silence, controlled, intentional silence, it unsettles them. It exposes something they never counted on: your ability to remain unfazed. Because silence, in the hands of someone who has mastered their emotions, is not passive. It's strategic. It's how you reclaim the narrative without ever speaking a word. People underestimate silence because they confuse it with surrender. But silence is not giving up. It's opting out. It's you saying, "I'm not giving you my energy, my voice, or my dignity." It's a choice. A declaration of emotional independence. And when you make that choice, you no longer give them a stage, a spotlight, or an audience. You take away what they crave the most in your reaction. I've sat across from people who wanted to provoke, to dominate, to wound. And do you know what stopped them cold? Not yelling, not threats, not even anger. It was composure. It was looking them in the eye with no fear and no need to respond. Because when you don't give someone access to your emotions, you show them that you've already won. That silence isn't you backing down. It's you rising above. It's control. And nothing scares a manipulator more than someone they can't manipulate. Emotional detachment isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about showing that you're in control of what gets your energy. When someone tries to provoke you, their biggest weapon is your own reaction. They want to see you spiral, overthink, explode, or beg. Because if they can shake your emotions, they still hold a piece of you. But when you detach, when you observe without absorbing, when you choose not to flinch, you strip them of every ounce of power they thought they had. You let them know, without saying a word, you don't get to live rent-free in my mind anymore. That kind of control is terrifying to people who rely on chaos. They thrive on being able to manipulate your mood. So when you stop responding the way they expect, they lose the script. They can't provoke you, because you've decided they no longer have that privilege. You are no longer reacting from hurt. You're responding from wisdom. And that shift, that's what makes you dangerous. Because you don't fight on their terms. You don't explain yourself to someone who's already made the decision to misunderstand you. You pull back, refocus, and let your growth answer for you. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've healed beyond the point of needing to be understood by people who only ever wanted to break you. The most brutal truth is this: outgrowing someone hurts them more than any words ever could. And not because you set out to hurt them, but because they never expected you to thrive without them. They thought they were necessary to your story. They believed they had influence over your future. But when you level up quietly, when you keep pushing forward while they're still stuck in the same patterns, it sends a message louder than anything you could ever say. You became what they said you'd never be. And you did it without them. There's no revenge more complete than showing up for your own life. People who hurt you expect you to crumble. They want you broken. They want evidence that they mattered. So when you keep showing up, when you keep winning, when you keep building a life that no longer includes their name, it's not just growth, it's justice. You didn't just move on. You outgrew the environment they tried to trap you in. And that's what truly destroys them. When you walk into a room with confidence, when your life starts reflecting discipline, peace, and purpose, they feel that distance. You don't need to gloat. You don't need to look back. Just by becoming better, you remind them they were never your limit. They were just a lesson. And now, you've graduated. That's the kind of victory that needs no announcement. Because while they're still looking for someone to blame, you're already too far ahead to hear the noise. You take back your power the moment you stop reacting. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. Because it feels unnatural not to respond when someone disrespects you, when they lie, manipulate, cheat, or betray you. Your instinct screams, fight back. Expose them, make them feel what they made you feel. But the smartest thing you can do in that moment is to give them nothing. No calls, no texts, no explanations, not even a stare. Because no reaction is the most controlled, calculated move you'll ever make. And the one they'll never recover from. People who try to hurt you want one thing: access. Not just to your presence, but to your emotions, your mind, your time, your reactions. They don't just want to see you fall. They want to see themselves in your fall. They want to know they still influence you, that they matter enough to shake you, that they live in your thoughts rent-free. And when you don't react, when you offer nothing, not even a shift in your tone, they lose the one thing they need to survive: attention. Do you know what real power looks like? It's walking past someone who tried to humiliate you, betray you, destroy you, without even acknowledging their existence. It's being so in control of your inner world that no one gets to pull your strings anymore. Because every time you react emotionally to someone's disrespect, you hand them control. You're telling them, yes, you can still access me. Yes, I'll still give you my peace, my voice, my energy. And you don't owe that to anyone. You don't need to prove your pain. You don't need to make them understand what they did. Some people knew exactly what they were doing. They just didn't think you'd catch on. And when you do catch on, you don't need to stage a scene. You just shut the door so silently that they don't even realize it's closed until they reach for the handle and it's gone. Your silence is the boundary, and boundaries aren't explained. They're enforced. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate and what you entertain. No reaction doesn't mean weakness. It means mastery. It means you've grown past the point of needing someone to feel your pain to validate your healing. And most people don't expect that. They expect vengeance. They expect a dramatic goodbye. They expect some last text, some final explosion. But when you give them peace instead, when you just disappear and elevate, they're left spinning, because when someone who once had emotional access to you suddenly has none, they panic. They question. They replay. Why isn't she reacting? Why isn't he calling? Did they even care? And that's when the tables turn. That's when the control flips. Now they're the ones obsessing. They're the ones hurting. They're the ones haunted by your absence. And that's not about being cruel. That's about preserving your energy, protecting your sanity, guarding your peace like your life depends on it. Because it does. Not everyone deserves your words. Not everyone deserves closure. Sometimes, your silence is the only answer they're ever going to get. And that answer will echo longer than anything you could have shouted. Because no reaction sends a message they can't manipulate. There's no spin, no defense, no comeback when you've gone completely silent. You didn't just step back. You removed yourself from the entire arena. And while they're watching your silence, hoping for a crack, you're not even looking their way. You're busy. You're rebuilding. True strength. You're leveling up. You're reclaiming every part of yourself they tried to destroy. You're building a life that doesn't involve explaining yourself to people who intentionally tried to misunderstand you. That's real growth. That's what it means to rise with dignity. Let them talk. Let them gossip. Let them spread their side of the story. Let them perform for an audience of people who don't even matter. Because the truth doesn't need a defense team. It just needs time. Time reveals everything. And the people who tried to ruin your name will watch your life become the proof that they were never as powerful as they thought. All without you having to say a single word. And it doesn't mean you don't feel. It doesn't mean you weren't hurt. It just means you've chosen not to give your power to people who wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. You've chosen your peace over their drama. Your future over their validation. And that's the kind of choice that elevates you far beyond their reach. No reaction is the ultimate mic drop. It says, you no longer affect me. I have nothing left to say to you, because I'm already too far ahead to look back. You don't need to defend your silence. You don't need to explain why you disappeared. Your growth is the explanation. Your peace is the answer. Your glow is the closure. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, remember, you're not obligated to attend every argument you're invited to. You're not required to participate in your own disrespect. You can walk away. You can say nothing. And in doing so, you say everything. Success is the language they can't argue with. It's not about showing off. It's about showing up. Every single day. For yourself. For your growth. For your future. When someone tries to tear you down, the most brilliant, a strategic move you can make is to rise so far above the drama that your life becomes the loudest response. You don't need to defend your name. You don't need to clap back. You let your discipline, your consistency, and your results speak volumes. There is nothing more disarming than watching someone you tried to break become stronger. Not because they said something back, but because they built something back. Better, smarter, unshakable. When you stop explaining yourself and start evolving, that's when the real shift happens. Because they can't debate your glow. They can't undermine your work ethic. They can't touch the things you built while they were busy talking. And that's what eats them up. Not that you survived, but that you're thriving. People expect noise. They expect retaliation. They want to fight. But when you fall silent and go inward, when you start sharpening your skills, healing your wounds, expanding your mind, they lose the attention they feed off of. And the moment they realize you're not interested in revenge, but focused on results, that's when you become untouchable. You didn't just remove them from your life. You removed them the equation altogether. They're not part of your success story. They're just the part that made you sharper. Every accomplishment becomes your answer. Every boundary you set, every step you take forward, every time you say no to drama and yes to growth. It's you reclaiming power they thought they had. You're no longer playing their game. You're not in the mud trying to win a shouting match. You're in a different arena now. One where your mindset, your choices, and your actions are doing all the talking. And they speak clearly. You lost access to me when you thought you could break me. They watch, they wonder, they whisper. But they can't touch you anymore. Because while they were busy trying to tear you apart, you were busy building something unstoppable. You. That's the power of staying quiet and letting your success scream for you. Peace is a weapon most people don't know how to handle. Especially the ones who thrive on chaos. They're used to dysfunction. They're used to reactions. They feed off the tension, the arguing, the emotional turbulence they create in others. That's where they feel in control. But the second you stop playing their game and start protecting your peace, everything shifts. Because peace kills chaos. Not with noise, not with anger, but with stillness so unbothered it becomes unbearable to them. When you respond with calm, with clarity, with no emotional spikes, they can't hook you. They throw bait, and you don't bite. They provoke you, and you stay grounded. They accuse, and you don't even blink. That's what throws them off balance. Because now their old tactics don't work. They can't manipulate what doesn't react. And when you're centered, when you know who you are and what you're worth, you don't rise to every insult. You don't explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You protect your peace like it's gold. Because it is. And it's not just about staying quiet. It's about staying stable. Not allowing someone's storm to become yours. Not allowing their mood swings, their projections, or their chaos to live inside you. That's how you take your power back. You stop dancing in their drama and start creating a space within yourself that no one else has access to without permission. That's real strength. Not reacting when everything in you wants to. Not lowering yourself to match their energy. Because if someone can pull you into chaos, they own you. But when they can't move you, can't shake your foundation, they start to lose their grip. They want you defensive. They want you confused. They want your world to feel as unstable as theirs. But when you anchor yourself in peace, you stand in contrast to everything they are. You become a mirror they can't tolerate, because your calm forces them to face their own dysfunction. That's the silent victory. That's the unseen power. You didn't have to yell. You didn't have to fight. You just held your peace so firmly that it became the loudest thing in the room. And don't misunderstand. Peace is not weakness. It's not passive. It's not pretending you're okay when you're not. It's a choice, a daily decision to not let someone else's poison get into your system. It's learning to sit with your emotions without letting them explode. It's not about being soft. It's about being so disciplined, so emotionally intelligent, that your energy becomes impenetrable. That's what destroys chaos. That's what silences the noise. That's what makes them realize they can't touch you anymore. Because peace is not just how you feel, it's who you've become. You don't punish someone by screaming at them or calling them out. You punish them by making them irrelevant, by refusing to give them space in your mind, in your life, in your conversations. That's the kind of erasure they don't expect. Because people who hurt you usually believe they'll stay central to your story. They think you'll always mention them, always remember, always carry that wound. But when you move forward in complete silence, when you stop talking about them, thinking about them, reacting to them, they become a non-factor, and that's what really destroys them. See, people who thrive on control rely on being seen. They need to matter. Even if it's as your enemy, they still want to play a role in your life. So the moment you make them irrelevant, you cut the cord. You break their grip. You refuse to keep feeding the story they wanted to be part of. And that kind of indifference, it's more painful than anger. Because now you don't hate them. You don't care. And to someone who once held power over you, that's unbearable. You reclaim yourself the moment you stop defining yourself by what they did. You don't relive the betrayal. You don't replay the disrespect. You don't retell the hurt. You rewrite the story without them in it. They don't get the spotlight. They don't get the credit. They don't even get a chapter. You didn't just move on. You edited them out of the narrative. And now your focus is on something higher in your healing, your peace, your evolution. They might try to re-enter. They might try to stir the waters. But when you've made someone irrelevant, there's nothing for them to attach to. They reach for you, and there's no hand there. They look for your reaction, and there's only silence. They expect to see the old version of you, the one they could play games with. But she's gone. He's grown. The version of they hurt doesn't exist anymore. You buried that version, and in its place, you built someone who doesn't need revenge, doesn't need closure. Just distance. Making someone irrelevant isn't about bitterness. It's about power. Because when someone no longer matters to you, you stop bleeding for them. You stop justifying your worth. You stop making decisions from a place of pain. That's the shift. That's the moment you go from wounded to wise. You see everything clearly, and you choose yourself, not loudly, not with rage, just with a quiet, disciplined, unshakable refusal to let that person shape one more inch of your future. That's how you win. That's how you destroy them. Without saying a word, pain can break you or it can build you, but only you decide which. And the people who tried to hurt you, they never expected you to use that pain as fuel. They assumed it would destroy you, weaken you, slow you down. But when you decide to take every ounce of that betrayal, every word they said, every moment they made you question your worth, and use it to sharpen your focus instead of shatter your identity, that's when the game changes. That's when you become dangerous. Most people sit in their pain and let it control them. They replay it. They let it define who they are. But smart people, resilient people, they turn pain into precision. They channel it into their routine, into their discipline, into building something that no one can take away again. You don't get distracted anymore, because now you know what it costs. You don't tolerate weakness in yourself, because now you've seen what it looks like when someone tries to exploit it. You take all that pain, and you turn it into your edge. And you do it quietly. No need to broadcast your process. No need to scream, "Watch me bounce back." Because you're not doing this for them. You're doing it for you. That's what they'll never understand. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just keep sharpening, mind, body, spirit. You push yourself because now you know what it feels like to be torn down. And you never want to be in that place again. So you rebuild with a kind of intensity that can't be faked. They'll see it eventually. In your posture, in your energy, in the way you walk into a room like you own it, without saying a word. In the way you stay silent, focused, unshaken. That's the power they gave you without realizing it. Because every single time someone tried to harm you, they handed you more fire. And you used it to forge armor. Not walls. Armor. You're not closed off. You're just prepared. And now, you don't beg for respect. You command it. You took your pain, and you didn't waste it. You used it. You sharpened yourself until you became someone they never saw coming. And you didn't need to scream. You didn't need to throw it in their face. You just kept rising. Quietly, relentlessly, unapologetically. That's how you win. Not by erasing the pain, but by becoming the kind of person who uses it to never be controlled by it again. You don't need their validation. You don't need their apology. You don't even need them to acknowledge what they did. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone to recognize your worth is the moment you finally reclaim it. That's where your power is. Not in convincing them, not in explaining yourself, not in getting them to see what they destroyed, but in choosing yourself without needing their permission. People who hurt you will rarely give you closure. They'll pretend it wasn't that bad. They'll rewrite the story to make themselves feel better. And if you keep waiting for them to validate your pain, you stay trapped in it. But when you decide, "I don't need to get it," you free yourself. You cut the cord. You stop trying to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop seeking approval from people who were never qualified to give it. That's when you start living from truth. Not their truth, but yours. The kind of truth that doesn't shake every time someone disapproves or denies your reality. Because the more power you give to other people's opinions, the less you leave for yourself. And that's exactly what they count on. That you'll keep doubting yourself. That you'll stay small. That you'll keep chasing their recognition while forgetting your own reflection. But when you finally stop asking, "Do they see me? Do they care? Do they regret it?" and start asking, "What do I see in myself? What do I value? What do I want?" you step into ownership. Quiet ownership. And it's not loud. It doesn't need to be. Because confidence that's built from pain doesn't scream. It just is, solid, steady, unshakable. You walk into rooms differently. You stop over-explaining. You stop proving. You stop apologizing for the way you healed. And that unsettles people. especially the ones who once had control over you. You no longer react. You no longer need to be heard by those who silenced you. You've moved into a different phase, one where your peace, your values, and your future matter more than their opinion of you. You no longer search for justice in their hands. You've created it in your own life. That's what true power looks like. That's how you rise, not by making them see your worth, but by never needing them to in the first place. Sometimes the loudest message you'll ever send is your absence. Not your voice, not your anger, not a final explanation, just the fact that you're gone. Not physically maybe, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You've checked out. You've stopped engaging. You've removed their access to the parts of you they took for granted. And that silence, that absence, it hits harder than any confrontation ever could. Because people remember what they can't reach. What they once had and lost. What they dismissed and now crave again. When someone hurts you and you vanish from their world, when you stop answering, stop reacting, stop being available, it forces them to face something they never thought they'd have tog. A version of you that no longer needs them. They expected drama, they expected a scene, but instead, you vanished like smoke. Untouchable, unreadable, unavailable, and that will haunt them, because they wanted to see you beg, fall apart, break down. And you gave them nothing, that becomes everything. You see, your absence is power. It's the final boundary. It says, you no longer exist in the world I'm building. And they feel that. In the quiet, in the space you used to fill, in the energy they no longer get to feed off of. And they'll act confused. They'll pretend they don't notice. But they always notice. They check, they wonder. They replay the last interaction over and over in their mind. They wonder why you didn't come back. Why you didn't explain. Why you didn't need closure. But that was the closure. The silence. The absence. It was never meant for them. It was for you. Because when you remove yourself from someone's life without fanfare, without revenge, without needing to be right, that's when you take all your power back. You stop giving them the satisfaction of your pain. You stop letting them rent space in your mind, and instead of burning bridges, you just walk away and let them collapse on their own. Quietly, completely, permanently. And it's not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring too much about your peace to stay where you're not respected. You reach a point where the silence isn't heavy anymore. It's healing. It's not the absence of noise, it's the presence of clarity. Clarity that says, I don't have to fight to be seen. I don't have to defend my worth. I don't have to keep explaining what you chose not to understand. You just leave. Not to prove anything, but because you finally know what you deserve. And it will confuse them. Your silence will echo in rooms they thought they owned. Because they still want your reaction, they still want that emotional access. But when they realize you've taken it back completely, they're left with only their own behavior to sit with. No one else to blame. No one else to argue with. Just the consequences of how they treated you. And your absence amplifies those consequences louder than any argument ever could. People fear silence because it forces them to reflect. And the longer you stay silent, the louder their guilt becomes. They'll try to fill that silence. Through rumors. Through fake concern. Through messages that pretend nothing happened. But you don't answer. Not out of spite. But out of self-respect. Because once you've made peace with someone's absence from your life, you don't go back. You don't revisit pain that you've already healed from. You don't reignite a fire that burned you. You just keep walking. And every step forward in silence becomes a scream they can't ignore. And it's not that you're heartless. It's that you've become selective. Selective about who gets your energy, who gets your vulnerability, who gets to sit at your table. Because you know now, some people only want access to you so they can drain you. So they can feel powerful while you feel small. But you're done being small. You're done being explainable. And you're certainly done being predictable. They don't get the comfort of your reaction anymore. They don't get to know how you feel. They don't get to measure your healing. They just get silence. And in that silence, you build. Quietly. Relentlessly. You pour all the energy you used to waste on them into yourself. You evolve. You get sharper, calmer, more grounded. You grow. You rise. And they're stuck watching from the same place they tried to keep you in. But you're long gone now. They may still talk about the old you. But the new you, that version doesn't answer. That version doesn't go backward. That version lets them talk while she builds an empire in silence. Because at the end of the day, you don't owe anyone a performance. You don't owe them a breakdown. You don't owe them another ounce of your peace. Your silence is not empty. It's full of boundaries, full of decisions, full of transformation. It's the final act of power, the final act of healing. It's how you say everything without saying a word. And when they realize you're not coming back, when they feel the weight of your absence instead of the noise of your pain, that's when they'll understand. They didn't just lose you. They lost access to someone they'll never encounter again. And no explanation, no apology, no second chance will open that door once it's sealed shut. Because your silence didn't come from weakness. It came from strength. The kind of strength they never thought you'd find. But you did. Quietly. Fully. Unapologetically. And now that they're finally listening, it's too late. So in the end, you don't need to shout to be heard, and you don't need to fight to win. Your silence becomes your strength. Your absence becomes your statement. Your peace becomes your power. The smartest way to destroy those who hurt you isn't through revenge, rage, or retaliation. It's through evolution. You rise so far above what they did they can't even recognize the person they tried to break. You don't chase justice from them. You become justice in the life you build without them. And when they finally realize that your silence was the loudest message of all, it's already too late because you've already moved on, stronger than ever, without ever saying a word.